The classic Sonic games are truly remarkable. These games are still insanely fun to play 30 years later, and thus they've been re-released tons of times for tons of different platforms throughout the years. These games have been re-released so many times, I bet you have Sonic 2 downloaded at least 3 different ways. However, there's something about Sonic Origins that just feels different. This game is bringing Sonic 1, 2, CD, and 3 and Knuckles under one roof for the first time ever. We definitely have not been starved for Sonic 1 and 2, but Sonic CD and Sonic 3 and Knuckles haven't been re-released since 2011, so that makes Origins feel a lot more complete as a collection. However, is Origins worth picking up if you already own these games elsewhere? Let's find out. So these versions of these games are not direct ports, but instead remakes in the Retro engine, which was previously used in the mobile ports of Sonic CD and later Sonic 1 and 2 in 2011 and 2013 respectively. So Origins features 2 different ways of playing these games, Anniversary Mode and Classic Mode. The Anniversary Mode features these games running in widescreen with the addition of the drop dash, the removal of lives, and Knuckles and Tails are now playable in all games. Well, Knuckles isn't playable in Sonic CD for some reason. I guess the technology isn't there yet. Since Anniversary Mode has gotten rid of lives, in any place where you could gain lives previously, this game has replaced them with coins that you can use in the museum or to retry special stages. Retrying special stages is probably my personal favorite new addition. It's completely optional, but can be really helpful when you keep accidentally stepping in the lean in the Sonic CD special stages. This is probably going to help a lot of people 100% these games for the first time, which is great. But if you're more of a purist who's interested in playing these games as they originally were, Classic Mode might be more up your alley. This features the games running in their initial aspect ratio with lives re-added and basically how you remember them. That's pretty cool, but unfortunately I do have some qualms with the way that these 2 modes are presented. Anniversary Mode is great and likely how I imagine most people will play these games since the enhancements are really nice, but if you wanted to play Anniversary Mode with lives on, you can't. My biggest gripe with Sonic Origins is that for a collection of this caliber, there's a severe lack of options for how players want to enjoy these games. It would have been really nice if players could toggle the aspect ratio, the drop dash and spin dash, and lives all independently of each other, and maybe even adding the super peel out and elemental shields would have been a nice touch. But unfortunately, you have to play in one of these 2 modes, and Classic Mode is kind of weird. If you're hoping that these games will play exactly like they did on the Genesis, Classic Mode isn't quite going to scratch that itch. The spin dash is still in Sonic 1, and these games are still using the remakes physics. Personally, I don't think that this is a bad thing since I think that these remakes are great, but it does make Classic Mode a bit of a confusing addition since it's basically just a worse way to play these remakes. If Classic Mode was just emulating the Genesis ROMs, or if the games were edited to be exactly how they were, it would make more sense. But as it stands, I don't really know who would pick Classic Mode over Anniversary Mode. However, for the most part, these games play really well, and these remakes really bring out the best in these classic games. Sonic 1, 2, and CD have actually been re-released in widescreen before, so these remakes aren't necessarily new to this collection. CD was ported to PC back in 2011, and this version is still pretty much the same as the 2011 remake, just with the drop dash added in. While I was playing, I did get stuck in the walls a couple of times from traveling in time, but hey, that's Sonic CD for you. Other than that, I think that the drop dash is a great addition to Sonic CD, and it makes this game a lot more fun to return to. Sonic 1 and 2 have also had Retro Engine remakes in the past, but those remakes have been locked to the mobile versions, which are less than ideal. I mean, these remakes run really well on mobile, and they have some really cool additions like Hidden Palace Zone being added back into Sonic 2, but playing these games with a virtual D-pad and buttons isn't super intuitive in my personal opinion. The free versions are also absolutely littered with advertisements that take you out of the experience. It's so nice to have these versions on consoles now, and this does make these versions the definitive official ways to play Sonic 1 and 2 in my opinion. The drop dash is a little stiff in both of these games, but the ability to retry these special stages is such a nice option. There was also a neat little addition to Sonic 2. So after you clear a special stage in Sonic 2, your ring counter gets set back to 0 and you need to gather another 50 rings by the next checkpoint. In Origins though, you keep all of your rings after clearing a special stage, which really helps to cut back on the tedium when 100%ing this game. However, if you enjoyed the challenge of gathering 50 rings again, be warned that Classic Mode also has the new system, and there is no option to turn this change off. Also, a little minor thing with Sonic 2, Tails has this really weird problem where he will get stuck and jump repeatedly, resulting in a very annoying constant jumping sound. I really hope that this gets patched soon because I do think that this is the ideal way to play Sonic 1, 2, and CD officially. These games run really well and don't feature the slowdown that the originals do since they aren't held back by hardware limitations, and this is most evident in the special stages. However, the remake that I was most excited for was Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Sonic 3 and Knuckles has been in re-release limbo for a while now. It hasn't been re-released since its Steam port in 2011. Frequent Sega collaborators like AtGames and Stealth, the latter of whom would actually play a large role in Sonic 3 and Knuckles' remake in Sonic Origins, have speculated that this is due to licensing issues with the soundtrack. I'm not going to pretend to know all the goings-on with the soundtrack, the licensing, and the alleged Michael Jackson involvement, but instead I really just want to focus on the final product, the long-awaited retro engine remake of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It's important to note that you cannot separate the two games, so you are strictly playing Sonic 3 and Knuckles in its intended combined form. That's fine, not a huge deal, but another example of just a lack of customization. However, let me just say that this remake feels incredible. Maybe I'm just happy to finally play this game in widescreen, but man, this game just feels so good to play again in this new, updated format. I think that this is the best version of the Drop Dash 2. It's implemented very well in Sonic 3 and Knuckles and works just as well as it did in Sonic Mania. This game also feels slightly faster than the original version, which isn't a problem for me, but for speedrunners it might be a big difference. I love the way that this game plays. However, it's time to address the elephant in the room, the new songs. So, most of the music is still intact. There are a couple of zones though that had their music replaced by reimaginings of songs from the prototype of Sonic 3 that would later be included in the Sonic and Knuckles collection on PC. There's Carnival Night Zone, which I think loses a little bit of personality, but I really don't mind the new version. There's Launch Base Zone, which is totally tolerable, but I really preferred the original. And then there's Ice Cap Zone. Ice Cap Zone has one of my favorite Sonic songs of all time. Just listen to this jam. Now, listen to the new version.
Turn it off!
Yeah, a noticeable downgrade. Now, if this is a deal breaker for you, I completely understand that. Personally, I think that this remake of Sonic 3 and Knuckles is the definitive official way to play Sonic 3 and Knuckles simply just because it plays so well. But the music is a huge part of the experience, and it does hurt to have that Achilles heel here. A little minor nitpick too, but I really wish that there was an option to remove the screen flash when using Hypersonic. Just a minor thing, but it'd be really nice to have some of these accessibility options for players who might be more sensitive to flashing lights. However, I think that this version of this game is great. Sonic Origins has, in my opinion, the best official way to play all of the classic Sonic games. While not all of these remakes are necessarily new, these are the best ways to play them on modern consoles. However, as this game came out, Sega delisted a lot of the best ways to play these games individually on modern platforms, which is a real bummer. The versions of each game on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 were delisted, which was somewhat understandable, I guess. But so were the Steam ports, and this one was a big loss. The Steam ports of these games were so great because they were inexpensive and could run well on Sega's emulator, but they were also completely legitimate ways to obtain a ROM of these original games. If you want to play fan enhancements like Sonic 3 Air or Sonic Classic Heroes, this was the way to do it. If you want to play fun little fan hacks like Big's Fishing Derby or play as Vector or Shadow in Sonic 1, you could download these mods straight from the Steam Workshop and play them effortlessly in Sega's own emulator. Sega likely removed these ports of these games because they would have competed with Origins too much, but personally, I think that Origins has enough unique content and new features that make it stand apart from these versions and fan remakes that they didn't really need to do this. When it comes to game compilations, Sonic is certainly no stranger to them. Sonic Jam, Sonic Gems Collection, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, there's no shortage of game compilations out there for the Sonic series. However, the game that I and seemingly everyone else likes to point to as a near-perfect collection is Sonic Mega Collection. Released for the GameCube, then later the PS2 and Xbox with some added games, Sonic Mega Collection is a true love letter to these classic games and is the gold standard for Sonic collections, so I will be directly comparing this game with Sonic Origins to see how it stands against that collection. Sonic Origins obviously has these enhanced remakes going for it, but it also has a boss rush mode where you can play all of the bosses from a single game back to back. This is a pretty neat little mode. There's also mirror mode, which will give your muscle memory a real run for its money, but it's really not all that noteworthy beyond that, honestly. Sonic Origins also features a story mode, which is basically just playing through each game back to back. A neat little novelty, but nothing super mind-blowing. However, one really awesome addition to Sonic Origins is its cutscenes. Sonic Origins adds these neat little animated cutscenes at the beginning and end of each game that aims to help add a little bit more continuity and lore to these games. While they don't really turn these games into an insanely cohesive story, these cutscenes are a wonderful addition. They're animated wonderfully and are incredibly charming additions to these games as you play. These cutscenes, along with a lot of the added features in the remakes, are solid proof that the team that worked on this collection is so passionate about these games, and a lot of care and attention to detail went into making this collection. Another really neat addition is Blue Spheres. You can play the original version with the original stages, but there's also a brand new version of Blue Spheres with brand new stages unique to Sonic Origins, and I think that's a nice touch. There's also online leaderboards for each act as well, although there isn't a dedicated time trials mode for any game other than Sonic CD, so it isn't really the easiest game to retry stages over and over and practice on. However, my favorite new addition is the mission mode. Later Sonic games would often feature missions and ranking options for players to challenge themselves to get S ranks, and this is implemented really well into Sonic Origins. There are a bunch of missions in each game that involve challenges like defeat this certain number of enemies, gather this number of rings, get to the end doing a pacifist run, and so on. These missions are easily the selling point of this collection for me. They are so much fun to go through, and it really allowed me to experience these games in a new, fresh way. My biggest critique of the missions is that I just wish that there was more of them. There are 60 missions in the base game, with an additional 11 that are purchasable through the Premium Fun Pack for an extra $4. These DLC missions are pretty tough, and a lot of them focus on some kind of advanced tech like jumping out of spin dashes, which is really cool, but I really wish we could have gotten some more missions in the base game. I just think that these are super fun, and if you're a Sonic fan who has played these games to death like I have, this is going to be the highlight of the collection for you. However, let's go back to Sonic Mega Collection for a second. Origins has a lot going for it. Mission mode, story mode, boss rush, enhanced ports, all of that is great stuff. But Sonic Mega Collection does feature more games, some of which are unlockable. Sonic Mega Collection on GameCube has Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Sonic Spinball, Sonic 3D Blast, Flicky, and Rystar, all of which are not present in Sonic Origins. Granted, Sonic Origins does have Sonic CD, but I do wish that some of these games would have made it into this collection. Even if they weren't enhanced ports, it would have been really nice to see Sonic Spinball, Sonic 3D Blast, or Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine as unlockables. Even better, if we got a remake of a game like Knuckles Chaotix, which hasn't really seen any re-releases besides an odd PC and Mac port in 2005, that really would have been a cool addition. The addition of maybe one more game would have really helped to round things out, but I would argue that Sonic Origins has a fair amount to do. However, let's also talk about its bonus content. Sonic Mega Collection has a plethora of historical Sonic material to dig through that it almost feels like a museum of all things Sonic. We've got some old style guides, comic book covers, manuals for each of the games, tons of promotional artwork, and even some trailers from the hobby fair in Japan back in 2002, which is a really cool relic to see. Sonic Origins does have some really cool additions too, like character sketches, style guides, soundtrack covers, internal magazine covers, manuals, box art, art and some promotional art, which is really cool. However, there aren't really any old trailers or materials that aren't generally from the games included in the collection, barring a few exceptions. I do like that we get the Sonic Symphony and the animatics for the new cutscenes, but I do think that Sonic Origins museum content is alright compared to Mega Collection, and I really do think that Sonic Origins had a lot of opportunities to provide a lot more historical material from Sonic's history than it does. Finally, Sonic Origins also has a sound test where you can listen to the music from the games in the collection and some remixes from other games. However, if you pay extra, you can also get music from Knuckles Chaotix, Sonic 3D Blast, and Sonic Spinball. Yep, definitely worth it. I don't really get why this was locked behind a paywall, much less why it's in the game at all. These games aren't playable, and having the music in here makes me feel like Sonic Origins really should have had these games playable in some capacity, but unfortunately, they're not. You'll also get these little character animations if you buy the Premium Fun Pack, which is so confusing as to why this would be behind a DLC paywall. And ultimately, this is one of the biggest problems I have with this collection. Its pricing and its DLC. Sonic Origins retails at $40, with the Digital Deluxe costing $45 with all of the DLC. The Premium Fun Pack and Classic Music Packs are $4 each, and honestly, this content really should just be included with the base game. While $40 did have me a little sticker shocked at first, since these are basically 4 enhanced Genesis games from the 90s, I honestly don't think that the price point is that bad for what you really get here. For that price, you're getting great versions of these games with bonus cutscenes, modes, and missions, and I really do not regret purchasing this collection at all. However, the DLC seems a little bit unfair to me. The best part of the DLC is the extra missions, and there are only 11 of them, which is a little low for this asking price. Sonic Mania had DLC for $5 that featured 2 additional characters and an entirely new campaign with revamped level design and entirely new special stages. But I'll sing Sonic Mania's praises another day. You also get some letterbox backgrounds for Classic Mode, which is fine, I guess. You'll also get some little character animations in the main menu and the ability to zoom into these little islands. These are cute and I really like them, but why are they locked behind this DLC paywall? You also get the aforementioned character animations during the sound test, all in the Premium Fun Pack for $4. The Classic Music Pack is literally just music from Knuckles Chaotix, Sonic 3D Blast, and Sonic Spinball in the sound test. That's it. You can't set them to play on the menus or in any of the games or anything. If you ask me, you should completely skip the Classic Music Pack. If you want some cute little animations and the extra missions, I say go for the Premium Fun Pack, but honestly, just go with the base game if you're interested. I do wish that Sonic Origins didn't arbitrarily lock some of this content behind a DLC paywall, but other than that, I do believe that this is a good collection. I had so much fun going back to these games and playing them all over again in this new shiny version with missions and quality of life improvements. It's very clear to me that a lot of passion and care went into the improvements and bonuses that are in this collection, and I'd say that if you've never played these games before, this is a great way to experience them for the first time. If you do own these games and have played them before, I really do think that Mission Mode and the new quality of life improvements are worth your time. I just really wish that a lot of the missing features that I would have liked to see, pricing issues, and the delisting of old versions of these games hadn't soured my taste a bit on the package, but I still do recommend this collection. It's not perfect, but Sonic Origins has a lot of heart and will be the way that I personally replay these games for years to come. But where is Sonic 4, Sega?